So you've been training and rehabbing hard, practicing, running, and lifting, but you still feel like there's something missing. Maybe your capacity's not there. Maybe you're gassing out in competitions, or maybe you're not able to maintain the outputs that you once were before your injury. That's not a work ethic problem, it's a capacity problem. If your body can't deliver and utilize the oxygen necessary to fuel the high-intensity actions that we see in soccer, then you might get left behind. Then you might be stuck with your hands on your knees in crucial moments of the game. This is where VO2 max comes in and why it could be a major game changer in the rehab process and for helping you develop your fitness to the fullest potential so that you can get back into match scenarios and thrive. My name is Joe. I'm the owner of TK Athletic Performance. I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach and rehab specialist with over a decade of experience helping ACL rehabbers return back to peak fitness using methods like the 5 that I'm going to explain in this video. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down VO2 max, and I'm going to be talking about 5 powerful methods to improve your VO2 max so that you can improve your performance in competitions when you get back to the field. So let's start with what is VO2 max and why is it so important? VO2 max is your maximal oxygen uptake. So there's 2 critical components with VO2 max that make it so important. The first one is cardiac output, which is essentially your heart. And the second one is the rate at which you pull oxygen into the muscles during high intensity exercise. So it's the amount of oxygen that you can pump to your muscles using your heart, and it's the rate at which you can pull that oxygen out of your muscles to be utilized in your mitochondria for high intensity exercise. So the way that I think of VO2 max is that it involves 2 really important structures in the body: the heart, as a working muscle, of course, and the mitochondria, which are in your muscle cells. One of them deals with how much blood and how much oxygen we can deliver to the muscles when we do high-intensity exercise, like play soccer, sprint, fight, etc. And the other one is our ability to take that oxygen, pull it out of the blood and into the muscles so that our mitochondria, those little tiny powerhouse organs in our cells, can utilize them to convert energy into mechanical work. Okay, so we've established the 2 components of VO2 max. We have cardiac output, which is your heart, and then we have a VO2 difference, which is, like I mentioned before, the rate at which we pull oxygen into the muscles, and that involves your mitochondria. The heart and the mitochondria, 2 critical structures in VO2 max. So why is VO2 max so important for soccer in particular? There's 2 reasons. The first one is that soccer is a repeated sprint ability sport. So the ability to repeat high intensity efforts throughout the course of 90 minutes or however long you're going to play is going to be a critical factor in your success as an athlete. Reason number 2 is that your ability to recover quickly in between those high-intensity bouts is also going to be a measure of success in a competitive scenario. So having a higher VO2 max is critical because it helps us recover faster, but also do more sprints over the course of 90 minutes. Okay, so let's move on to the good stuff. The 5 powerful methods that we can use to boost or improve our VO2 max for better soccer performance as we rehab for better soccer performance. Okay, so method number 1 is quite a common method. This is typically called a VO2 max interval because it's so effective in the research at improving VO2 max. But essentially, this type of interval is called the 4x4x4 method. So you're going to do 4 rounds or 4 repetitions of 4 minutes of maximal effort work followed by 4 minutes of rest. Okay, so 4 cubed essentially, 4x4x4. Now, the important part of this interval structure right here is that 4-minute work period has to be maximal. You have to try and get as far or go as hard as you can for 4 minutes because you're trying to push your heart rate and your output as high as possible during that 4-minute work interval. And I like to think of this as like you're getting an equal amount of rest during this particular interval. You're getting 4 minutes of rest. So you get a significant amount of time to recover in between these intervals. So it pays to go harder during the 4-minute period right here. Then you're going to repeat it 4 times. Typically for this type of interval, less is more. The quality of each interval matters though, and the intensity of each interval matters here. So 4 minutes as hard as possible, rest 4 minutes, repeat 4 times, do 1 to 2 times per week, and you'll see an uptake in your VO2 max. Okay, method number 2 are sprint intervals. So this particular interval, it's designed to increase the rate that we can pull oxygen out of the blood and capillaries into the muscles to be utilized by the mitochondria. So sprint intervals are designed to be like a sledgehammer. The sprint interval is designed to increase the rate at which we pull oxygen out of the bloodstream so it can be used in the muscles. Now, intensity is key on this one as well. With sprint intervals, you're looking at 20 to 30 seconds of maximal all out effort as hard as we can go for that time period, and then a significant amount of rest. So for this one, the rest period is going to be up to 5 times longer than the work period. So it might look like something like a 30-second all out interval followed by 3 minutes of recovery. Repeat 5 to 6 times. Once again, quality over quantity and intensity over volume here. These particular intervals are going to be very intense, and it's better to use methods that mimic the change of direction or repeated sprint aspect of soccer. So in this particular interval, I like shuttle runs, for example. So you could do a maximal effort shuttle run for 30 seconds, rest 3 minutes, repeat 6 times. The objective for these are you're trying to maximize the oxygen demand in that 30-second interval with your intensity. Okay, method number 3 is cardiac output training. Now we talked about before, there's 2 components of VO2 max, or 2 structures that are really important. The heart and its ability to push blood out to the rest of the body during intense exercise, and the mitochondria. The first 2 intervals were focused on the mitochondria. This particular interval is focused on the heart, where cardiac output workouts aren't sexy, but they're really effective. This is essentially a large volume of moderate intensity work so that you can build the heart's size and strength to be able to pump that blood out to the rest of the body during higher intensity exercise that you're going to be doing later. This type of training lends itself more to the regeneration and recovery side because the intensity is lower to moderate. So a general prescription for cardiac output is about 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity exercise. And we can track this a couple of ways. If you want an in-depth breakdown of Zone 2 or cardiac output training, we have another video in the library that you can reference about Zone 2. But for right now, when we talk about low to moderate efforts, we can track this with 2 ways. First way is heart rate. So we can look at heart rate, or the heart rate associated with about Zone 2. So for most of us, that's going to be about 60 to 75% of our maximum heart rate. The only thing about that is that you need to know what your maximum heart rate is. And if you want to be accurate, you probably have to have a heart rate monitor. You could also use something like a talk test or rating of perceived exertion. So with something like this, moderate intensity might look like if you were to have a conversation with somebody in the middle of this type of training, it would be difficult or strenuous to have a conversation, but you could still do it. The other way that I like to moderate intensity with cardiac output stuff is nasal breathing. You should be able to nasal breathe during cardiac output stuff, and you should have an intensity during these intervals or these workouts that is sustainable for a long period of time. So at least 10 minutes up to 20 or 30 minutes. A sample workout might look like 30 to 90 minutes per session at a moderate intensity, at a rating of perceived exertion of 4 to 5 or a heart rate of 60 to 75%. But you can get creative with these and do things like weighted vest walks. You could do water running. You could do assault bike rides. You could push and pull a sled. You can jump rope. The method of exercise that you use is limitless here. It's more so sticking to the lower intensity aspect of the interval and making sure that you have enough volume over the course of the week to be able to get the adaptation that you're looking for. So yes, cardiac output intervals are boring, but they build a great aerobic foundation or aerobic capacity for us for the high intensity stuff later on. Okay, method number 4 for improving your VO2 max is maximal aerobic speed intervals. Not to be confused with maximal sprint intervals or maximal sprint speed, but MAS or maximal aerobic speed is the highest speed in which you can maintain for a long period of time that's associated with 100% of your VO2 max. Okay, so this is going to be much slower than your maximal sprint speed, but it's still going to be a powerful way of improving your VO2 max because we can do a lot of volume in a short amount of time. So the density of these workouts is really high. Now, unlike the sprint intervals that we talked about earlier, the rest periods on the MAS intervals are going to be super short. So we're going to do 15 to 30 seconds of work at a high intensity, but then 15 to 30 seconds of rest as well. So we're going to constrict that rest period to force us to pull oxygen from the bloodstream into the mitochondria and the muscles faster. Now with this type of interval, as I said before, we can get a lot of work done in a short amount of time. So that's what we want to do. So we might do something like 15 seconds of work and 15 seconds of rest at a pace that's associated at higher than 100% of our maximal aerobic speed, and repeat that for up to 10 minutes, for example. So as I mentioned earlier, we can get a large amount of volume done in a short amount of time with the MAS intervals. So that's what we're going to do. An example of this interval structure might be 15 seconds of work, followed by 15 seconds of rest, repeat for 5 minutes. So in that 5 minutes, I can get 10 of those intervals done, and then I can repeat for multiple sets, 2 to 3, maybe even up to 4 sets. So that's a lot of work in a short amount of time, and that's a lot of work that requires us to recover really, really quickly in between that 15-second rest interval to be able to work on the oxygen extraction side of the VO2 max. So the one caveat with this interval structure is that you have to know what 100% of your maximal aerobic speed is. So in order for you to find that out, you're going to do a 6-minute running time trial. So set a timer for 6 minutes, run as far as you can for 6 minutes. The pace that you run for that 6 minute, that you can maintain for that 6-minute work period is going to be 100% of your maximal aerobic speed. You're going to run that pace for 15 seconds of work and 15 seconds of rest, repeat for 5 minutes, which is 10 intervals, and then you're going to repeat that 5-minute interval structure for 2 to 3 times. So this interval structure, the MAS interval structure, is hard, but it's precise. It's specifically designed to bring up your VO2 max and do it in a way that you can get a lot of work done in a short amount of time. So it's quite effective. Okay, method number 5, we're down to the last method. Method number 5 of improving your VO2 max is going to be having a high chronic training load over a long period of time. Now you might be like, oh, Coach Joe, this isn't an interval or this isn't a specific workout, and you're exactly right. But that's why I saved it for number 5, because it's probably the most important one. The best way to improve your VO2 max is to have a large amount of work done over a long period of time. You have to build up your work capacity over years and years of training or months and months of training in order for you to experience the benefits of a high VO2 max. So it requires a significant amount of work over a long period of time. So VO2 max isn't predicated or improved by what you can do in a single session. It's the work that you accumulate over months and years of training. The reality is that athletes with high chronic training loads or high training loads for a long period of time are going to have better aerobic capacity. They're going to recover from injuries faster. They're going to have higher VO2 maxes, and therefore it's going to be easier for them to get back into competitive fitness when they do get injured. So it's important to know that training load is going to include all types of workouts that you're doing, not just fitness style workouts or energy systems or conditioning. It's also going to include strength training. It's going to include speed development. It's going to include practice and technical tactical training. It's going to include rehab. It's going to include all of the components of training that you're doing across the week. So when it comes to training load, more is typically better as long as your training load is ramped up in a safe way. So a typical rule of thumb that I like to use is that whatever training load you're starting with, let's say you are coming back from an injury and you are starting to train again, you're practicing again, you're going to track your training load in minutes across the entire week. And then the following week, you're going to create a 10% increase in the amount of minutes that you're training across the week. And you're going to continue to increase in 10% until you achieve a really high training load or a high enough training load that allows you to achieve the level of fitness necessary to play in competitions. Then you're going to hold it there for a really long time and accumulate weeks and months of high training loads until you become super robust to injuries. So the lesson here is that if your total workload is too low, then your aerobic capacity is going to be lower as well. And aerobic capacity is a major component of VO2 max. So if you want to improve your VO2 max, slowly and gradually stair-step your training load over the course of months and years so that you can build an aerobic base that serves you well when you're coming back from injury or when you're just trying to get fit for a crucial time in the season. Okay, so now you got 5 potent and powerful ways to improve your VO2 max. These are all backed by research and field tested on real athletes. If you think this helped you on your ACL rehab or fitness journey, hit the like and subscribe on my YouTube channel.